this. Secretary was talking about this just the other day. The unfair trade practices that we see from the CCP, the unfair trade practices that take advantage of the American people, take advantage of the American worker. And President Trump and Secretary Rubio have said, enough is enough. We're no longer going to have the American worker being taken advantage of. We're going to put the American worker first.
Principal Deputy Spokesperson for the Department of State Tommy Pigott assuring the American people the White House knows what it's doing when it comes to dealing with China and your money. Joining us to discuss, author Gordon Chang. And Gordon, I want to start with a recent op-ed in which you say for more than 4 decades, China's regime has been implementing predatory and criminal trade practices. For various reasons, the U.S. and other countries have let matters slide. In light of that soundbite that we just heard, I think it really touches on the same sentiment and concern over fairness. So my question to you is, in the long run, do you think all of these trade tariffs will actually pay off for Americans?
I think so, Didi. And the reason is that it's not just China. What we're seeing is President Trump going after tariff and non-tariff barriers in so many of our trade partners. And I think that once he gets done negotiating new trade deals, that there will be a renaissance in American manufacturing, especially if we keep tax rates low and perhaps enact some investment tax credits to encourage more manufacturing in the U.S. But this is going to be painful. There's no doubt about it, because we've had injurious trade policies and injurious China policies for decades.
Oh, yeah, long-standing tensions here that we're talking about, specifically on those trade negotiations that you touched on. Some have said that a possible icebreaker could be the drug war. The Trump administration has raised concerns over China's involvement in the fentanyl drug war, specifically at our border. Could this be a starting point for negotiations?
I suppose it could, but I don't think we should be talking to China about fentanyl. Got to remember that Xi Jinping made promises to stop the fentanyl trade to President Obama in 2016, to President Trump in 2018, and to President Biden in 2023. I mean, how many times do we have to come to this table to talk about these things and give China more time to kill more Americans? This is about 70,000 Americans each year die from fentanyl. And this is a Communist Party project, because some of these producers are actually state-owned. These criminal gangs operate in China's near-total surveillance state, so the party knows what's going on. Chinese diplomats give cover to the gangs. The gangs launder their proceeds through the Chinese state banking system. China's own TikTok promotes illicit drug use in the U.S. You know, the list goes on and on. I mean, how much more evidence do we need? So I think we should stop talking to China about this and start imposing some real costs for killing Americans.
On that point, if that is not the segue, as some have suggested that it is, we know that Americans are feeling the pain of this financially. We know China is feeling the pain of this financially. What do you think it'll take to break this impasse?
I think it'll take a failure of the Chinese economy or the removal of Xi Jinping. Now, Xi Jinping has been making the case for a half decade that because of his policies, China has surpassed the U.S., which means that he can't be seen to giving in to pressure from the U.S., and he can't be seen to be dependent on products from China. So he could very well take China off the cliff. But if he does decide to talk, these could be a very long period. And in that period, the Chinese economy could fail, because we're seeing signs that the Chinese economy has been contracting. China's in a deflationary spiral. The number that we saw from April for factory activity was disastrous. There are no good storylines in the Chinese economy these days.
The Chinese are extending, as you know, their footprint here in the U.S. There is legislation aimed at targeting what is called a growing danger to our national security. Several lawmakers have called it that, with the Chinese buying land here in America. Is there any way to control this?
Sure, legislation. Demand reciprocity. No American can own a square inch of land in China. So the question is, why do we allow Chinese parties to own land in the U.S. when we know that they're using it for some very dangerous purposes? Espionage, illegal marijuana grows, human trafficking operations based on farmland. So yeah, no, we should just use legislation and make sure that Chinese don't own land in our country, farmland and ranch land.
I want to pull up some video, some Hollywood-style movies that the U.S. just released that I know that you have seen, hoping to recruit the Chinese to the CIA. When Gordon, when I first looked at this, I actually thought that this was a teaser for films. Do you think this will actually be an effective way to procure Chinese dissidents to the CIA?
I really don't know, but the CIA's records with human assets in China has been nothing short of disastrous. You know, between 2010 and 2012, the CIA lost about 30 agents. Either many or all of them were executed. So the CIA tradecraft in China has led to, one catastrophic event after another. I'm not betting on a change in direction towards success.
Also, there are encrypted messages at the end of those videos, aren't they? And I just wonder, with all of the controls, the internet controls that are in China, how that would play out. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, that's how they got those 30 persons' assets, because the CIA was using the internet to communicate with them, and the Chinese regime broke it. So, the CIA going back to something that failed before, anything can work, and I hope that it does, of course, but I can't really be that optimistic until we see it actually produce results.
Certainly a fraught relationship between the two nations. So we will watch and see how this plays out. A fascinating discussion. Gordon Chang, thank you for joining us tonight on the National News Desk. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dee Dee.